you be signing a contract or receiving a letter of employment? I'm not here to say one is better than the other. I would take a letter of employment over a bad contract any day, right? Because bad contracts, who wants that? But a good contract that's mutually protective to both parties, that would be my first choice every time, because it gives you a little bit more protection as a provider. And in line with that, what shift do they expect you to work? I can tell you, if you're taking a W-2 position, what they say really doesn't matter. If you're W-2, I should say W-2 with a letter of employment position, what they say doesn't really matter. They can change that, and your only recourse is to talk to management and say, hey, this isn't workable for me, or ultimately to walk. Whereas if you have a contract, and the contract can detail kind of like the general arc of shifts that you're expected to work, and your contract can also detail if you're expected to take call, and if you take call, how much call you are going to take. I recommend, if you have a contract, getting that call spelled out. A lot of employer written contracts will say something like it works out to an average of 1 in 8 annually. Well, that would actually give them the freedom, if you're really short-staffed, to put you on call every other day, theoretically, right? As long as they don't exceed the number of shifts that, if you divide it by 365, works out to 1 in 8 annually. So I look to have my weekly call obligation spelled out. And then I also spell out that if there's opportunity to take more call, I get to opt into that. I would choose that, and how much the institution would pay me for doing that. Good contracts can set us up for healthy, successful relationships by defining the expectations on both sides. And I found that really helpful. Same thing with a weekend call obligation. If the contract reads an average annual of 1 in 4 weekends, again, they could put you on every other weekend until you've reached that number. And then beyond that, you wouldn't be taking call for the rest of the calendar year. I want that spelled out, that I will be taking, if it's 1 in 4, 1 weekend of call every calendar month, right? So that's different than an average of annual weekend calls. What's the scope of practice? The actual scope of practice, not the advertised one. Nerve block, spinals, epidurals, OB, pediatrics, larger institutions. What medical insurance plans are available if you're taking a benefited position. And then I can't believe I'm still saying to ask this in the year 2025 for advanced practice nurses, but when does coverage start? Most facilities coverage starts day one. I do know of some facilities where it doesn't start until 60 or 90 days in. Even in institutions where they say like, oh, the offer's the offer, we can't negotiate much. That is one thing that you could ask, like, I would need benefits to start same day. And the thing with asking these questions, worst case scenario, they say no, right? That's fine. That's totally survivable. Now both parties are clear. Retirement. Is there a retirement match? If there is it variable year to year? If it's variable year to year, what's it been the last 5 years, right? And then when is that match vested? How long do I have to be here? And is the vesting prorated, or is it like you lose 100% of it until you make it past that vesting date? Is there a sign-on bonus? If there's a sign-on bonus, is it all paid up front? Is it paid incrementally as you're passing the time? And if it is paid up front, I always recommend putting that money right now. High yield savings account aren't doing too bad. Just park it in there until you've reached the expiration date for having to pay that back, because you always want to allow yourself the ability to stay as deep in choice as possible and not be limited in your employment choices by financial decisions that you have made. So that is not all inclusive, but those are some of the high points of what I recommend you ask any entity that you're looking at entering into a employment relationship with.